All of this is in some way generated using artificial intelligence. For this first series, I used artificial intelligence that is attached to Adobe, in this case, Adobe Photoshop. This is meant to take SMS, like text messages. They're sent between loved ones or just people that like each other in some way, or people that are trying to, like, I guess what my mom would say, court each other and somehow make them romantic. I was always fascinated with like pickup lines, and in my day, and when I say in my day, I don't feel like I'm super old, but I do remember having to go out to like bars and clubs and things like that to meet people. And you would have to come up with pickup lines to do that, right? And you would have to be somewhat inventive and approach someone if you were trying to talk to them in a way that was romancing them. I find that when people use these text messages, a lot of that is missing. So what I've done is taken the text messages and placed them over these romantic backgrounds that were again created in Adobe using what's called generative fill. Backgrounds are basically just kitsch-like backgrounds that could be used for screensavers or on calendars, and then like paired with messages that are, you know, to me, somewhat cold, but meant to be romantic. This next series that all have toys in them were generated using ChatGPT. It's an artificial intelligence site that you can go to and you can basically ask it any question or ask it for help with anything, and it'll generate a response right away. So with this series, I asked ChatGPT to be my art director and help me come up with ads that used millennial slang, and in some cases Gen Z slang. I'm starting to see that the millennial and Gen Z slang kind of blend in together, and pair it with toys that were popular in the 80s and 90s. So all of the toys you see here are toys that I probably played with when I was younger, and it's being paired with slang that is considered to be newer. This grid here in the middle, we have all been artificial for some time now. It's just making a comment on artificial intelligence and how I would say most people nowadays are intrepid when it comes to artificial intelligence. But the point I'm trying to make with this piece is that we've all been primed and kind of setting ourselves up for artificial intelligence years before this. Like if you've used Instagram and you've written a post, it's really in some ways synonymous with like writing a prompt in Midjourney or Photoshop, generative fill, or any type of artificial intelligence that requires you to write a prompt and create an image or create something written, right? Like we've all crafted a post, we've all kind of like taken the selfie over and over again until we get it just right. And in that way, it is somewhat artificial, right? Like we've been kind of practicing for this, whether we want to like believe it or not, for some time. So these images here were created in Midjourney, which is again artificial intelligence. I would type in prompts for like scenarios where people are taking photos of their food or selfies, or, you know, like protests or at a concert. And so this is all about not being in the moment, but recording the moment and trying to look a certain way, which in my opinion is somewhat artificial, right? Like we change the moment we take our cell phone and we point it at ourselves to take a picture. Also, these handheld devices that we use have been consuming us for some way for some time, right? And in some cases, we start to act out in the way that we feel like we should act out, or be what we think that we should be based on what we see on things like social media. That's what this means. I know some people will probably take that word artificial and think of it as being very insulting. I like this because I feel like it opens up a conversation about artificial intelligence, but then also maybe based on what I'm saying about it, makes us take a look at social media and some of the practices that we've already been like taking part in before artificial intelligence even came about. So this was meant to be really busy and somewhat overwhelming. I gotta say, it was inspired by artists like Jenny Holzer, other artists who have used type. Pretty much the artists that I studied postmodern-wise when I was in school. This last series was also created with Midjourney. Midjourney would create the images based on prompts that I would write. But that's not where it stopped. I would also take it into Photoshop, change the color, change the contrast, crop it, edit, add some things in when I needed to, take some things out, and then pair it with these slang terms that I feel like are popular in some cases, millennial-wise, and like I said before, somewhat Gen Z too. You can see that those things blend together sometimes. This is very anthropological for me, right? Like, I don't use many of these terms. I've heard them. But this is also because I teach millennials and Gen Z. I hear how they talk to each other. It's my attempt to try to understand the language. But then also as an outsider, it's not supposed to be perfect, right? Because it's anthropological, I'm studying it as an outsider, right? There's a very cool quote that I remember, and I'm paraphrasing it, but it goes something like, "To even observe a culture is to change it." I don't know who to attribute that quote to. I know I heard it on a movie titled Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. And I feel like that applies to this in some way. It was a really profound scene in that movie when she says "Oh, to even observe a culture is to change it." And so, this is meant to be kind of like all of this. My dad jokes in a way. I understand that being a little bit outside of this culture or this generation is similar to baby boomers being outside Gen X or Gen Y.